Welcome to the Mucked Up My Self-Care podcast.
I'm Jill from New York.
And I'm Linda from Tasmania.
We are two moms from opposite sides of the world who are living, demonstrating, and helping moms across the world build their self-care asset bank.
Ready to dive in? Messy, interrupted, imperfect, and most of all mucked up. Let's get going. Hello, Jill. You're coming in with a lingering, pending sickness. So I'm trying to provide a little bit of energy with our tired state over at this end as well. So let's see how we go.
Yeah.
So, take a guess. I can take a guess what your highs and lows might be.
Go for it.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. Let's see. I'm going to start with my high because it doesn't feel too high. It's probably a low. We had our first snowstorm of the season last night. We've gotten a few snow showers, but this was the first one. We're getting 3 to 4 inches, and my husband had to be out all night to work. So it'll be fun to see how Declan reacts when the sun comes up and he wakes up. But also just snow hits different, and I like it. So it made me very, what is the right word? Delightful last night as I was watching it, because there's a certain kind of snowy sky that comes with it, a certain smell, and it's very soothing. So
yeah.
And then I have to remember I have to get up early and shovel in the morning. So as soon as we're done recording here, that's what I get to go do.
Oh my gosh.
Shovel the driveway, but that's my high. I do enjoy snow, even though it does take a lot of effort that has to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My low is Declan has been home. Okay, I have to count it. It's Wednesday. He got sent home Wednesday from school. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Today's Monday. So we're going on day 6 of him being home with a sickness.
Virus. Whatever.
Virus. I'm assuming the flu is going around. I didn't take him into the doctor. But he's got a pattern of I'm going to have a fever for 48 hours, throw up a couple of times, then I'll break it and I'll be good to go. So we thought we hit our good to go point on Saturday, but by the time he woke up on Sunday, we're like, you look worse than you did on Wednesday. And his fever was back up, and I feel bad. You could see that he got a little energy on Saturday and wanted to go use it, and then had nothing left on Sunday. I'm just like, thank goodness we have one more day of rest before school starts back up, and hopefully you can go back to school. So fingers are crossed that whatever I got from this is not too horrific, and that he gets better and enough to go to school ASAP. But I am tired. We are both exhausted from the couch of being just stuck on it, pretty much. Sleeping every time his eyes tried to open. He's like, no, I'm just going to go back to bed. I feel so bad.
Yeah.
So
tough. So tough. Because he doesn't have a full understanding of what's happening either.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a really strange thing to children. Anyway, I do hope you're on the mend soon.
Thanks. So, Linda, your highs and lows for today.
Let me think. So I think a high for me, I just finished a very wonderful book, and I actually felt myself sort of slowing down for the last 50 pages or so because I didn't want it to end. And I am making a bit more time for a bit more relaxation like that, instead of feeling the need to get up and be busy and do things, and cleaning the house a little less but not necessarily like, yeah, in the past I probably would have cleaned it halfway through the day and then looked around an hour later, especially with kids on holidays, and been like, oh my gosh. And now it's just sort of an end of the day thing or a morning thing, and that's it. And then I use other time for reading and stuff. So it's been fantastic. And my low, just haven't been sleeping very well because my older two boys are away at the moment. The wonderful magic of blended families and all that sort of thing. So, yes, feeling quite anxious in some ways about them, while also knowing that they need to pave their own way and become who they are and form their own opinions about things and everything else like that. So finding a balance between not interfering too much, but also making sure they're all okay. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it feels like to be able to say anything about it, but I think to an extent, like the kids being away on vacation without us is like where I get, but I even get that anxiety of just like one sleepover at grandma's or Nana pop-ups. I'm like, what are you doing? Do I need to know every minute? But at the same time, thoroughly enjoying the less chaos. So
yeah. I don't know that there's less chaos because I've still got two
still
little
have
ones.
Two at home.
And they're the little ones as well.
I'm like wondering if you notice the chaos though without the bigger ones around though.
Yeah, I think there's actually even a little bit more. So anyway, I do feel in some ways, because it has been 5 years since they took a trip like that, and last time I went with them and dropped them off at the airport and then all that sort of thing, and this time I had to pop them on the plane on their own and wave goodbye from the window. So it feels a little bit like just due to circumstance and all sorts of things, sending them to a stranger, really.
Yeah.
It's, which is a good segue into our topic today, because we're asking the question, what if self-care was a stranger?
Yeah.
How would you treat it? How would you think about it? Or what would you teach it? Is another probably good question. I just fired them all at you at once in your muggy, gluey state. I'm sorry.
Well, after our discussion last week, where we did mention like we would talk to other people differently than we talk to ourselves when it comes to self-care. So, you know, if you're reaching out to me, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I know you love to do these things. Go do these things. Like, stop messing around. But, you know, if I don't know you, how am I going to talk to you about self-care? Like, you know, that's where I think we've benefited from this podcast and our conversations together, is being able to put a real good definition that's not just, oh, go pamper yourself as self-care. It's actually finding the deep down meaning of what self-care is and how we can explain how someone else can find their reason for doing self-care to get good self-care out of it. So what if we talk to ourselves that way? Like, we were gentle with ourselves when we needed it.
Yeah, and kind.
Yeah. Are you finding now, without the boys home, while you've read a book now, like you're doing the time for your book, but like, are you finding that you are not keeping to the self-care that you have been?
It's just different.
Yeah. Are you finding yourself how you're talking about it differently too, like to yourself, like the guilt
not
part?
Really.
Okay.
Not really. So a lot of the reason or ways that I've been able to fit in reading a book is through there's two little people who grab my hand and want to go outside.
Mm.
And generally I'll just pick up the book at the door now
and walk outside
and
reading it and sit
walk
down
outside
reading
and
it.
sit down and read it until they decide, oh, we can go back inside now, and then back outside and inside. And so it's part of summer adapting. But I think generally in the past there would have been times where I wouldn't have had the book ready or thought of it as intentionally. I perhaps would have taken my phone and looked at my phone, perhaps, which is worse for them to see and worse for my habit building and self-care as well. And yes, there are times when we do just want to catch up on social media or scroll or those sort of things. But I do think that it's been more of a shift in my intentions than anything, and just making sure, the book is there. Sometimes I'll just leave it outside all day so that I know that each time I go outside for it's generally about 10, 20 minutes, and then I can fit in that time.
Yeah.
So
I do that with my Bible. Now that I'm almost done to the end, I'm like, it comes everywhere with me, so I could just finish the dang thing.
Yep, that's
I
what
feel
I've
like
been
we
doing.
do that towards the end of a book that we're reading. We're like, it's just coming everywhere.
Yeah.
Every break we get.
Well, I've been doing it even when I start a book. I'm just like, this is just going to come everywhere with me, and it looks so tatty by the end because
it's on the go.
It's been in the bottom of the car, the bottom of the bag. It's been on the trampoline. It's been So.
One of the things we talk about is living proof, and just being an example of what we talk about, especially for businesses and for our families and through self-care. So on the topic of what if self-care was a stranger, how are we showing our self-care out loud if strangers are watching and are being observant to our self-care? And I think that's a great point that you're saying with the book versus the phone. Like if I go to the skate park with Declan, I'm not hovering him watching, but I'm also not having conversations with other parents. Most times they're occupied with their children, and I'm just like, I brought my book. Like I am going to sit here and read my Bible while you skateboard. Declan, go for it. Have fun. But like, are we as being kind to ourselves and wanting others to know more about self-care? Are we living out that living proof for strangers in our self-care?
I hope so. I did actually have someone mention at the hairdresser the other day, oh, it's so good to see someone reading a good old-fashioned book instead of all these people look around, they're all on their phones. So I hope so, and not only to strangers out in public, but also things like where I've got the boys' friends coming over for a play, and they might see some of that as well. I think it's one of those things that you don't necessarily get feedback on either, or know if it's making an impact until perhaps someone does say something like, oh, it's good to see someone reading a book instead of on the phone. Or what about you?
I think it depends on where I'm going, but a lot of times I've started to tell people, like when they say like, oh, why are you here today? Like, oh, this is a self-care day for me. I'm here to do some self-care. And I speak it out loud to those. Or even if I am with Declan, I'm like, hey, I'm doing a little bit of self-care while you do a little bit of self-care. And like saying these things out loud, so that way, Declan's able to even then describe it to someone else if they ask, what's your mom doing over there reading a book? And he can do, oh, she's doing some self-care, or something. But also like just to let others know that people don't just come out of their house to go do something at your business because they had a whim, but because maybe they're having a self-care day. So
yeah. So let's just have some fun with this for just a minute. if self-care was a stranger, let's pretend self-care was a person, what do you imagine your self-care would look like? What would they do?
I feel like they'd be sitting outside my front door knocking on it very frequently to let me come inside.
Yeah.
Don't forget about me. Let me in.
Yeah. Maybe they could come and help you shovel the driveway.
Yeah.
Here's some
Actually, the
blankets.
self-care would be, let me go put on a cup of hot chocolate while you shovel the driveway for when you come back
Yeah.
inside. Have the
Yeah.
fireplace going. I feel like it would be a mirror image of myself. So that way you could see just how you are taking care of yourself. That would be my self-care stranger.
Yeah.
What about for you? What imagery comes up with that?
Yeah. Just before I go into that, it's interesting that you say it would be a mirror of yourself. So in some ways they'd feel like there would be familiarity there, but there also wouldn't be.
Yeah.
At the same time. For me, it's more like the grandmother sort of figure than anything of the I've been there, done that, and here's some stories to share with you about how I might have done things differently, or not in a regretful way, but more in a humbling sort of comforting way, I think.
I could see that being how you imagine it. It's very funny if you like take the two of us and just recognize how we both imagine our self-care stranger to be. I like that. Yeah, I mean, learning from and you can even consider that your own wisdom, like we've talked about in one of our previous episodes, like doing self-care through wisdom. But you've been there and done that at this point. So imagining yourself as the grandmother type, it's just you then giving validation to what your wisdom through that. So
yeah, my self-care would be very validating, by the way. That's like right up there on my needs. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of fun.
But I thought another way that we could take this, like, as we kind of finish up our thoughts, but like self-care as a stranger, but like it's strange to us sometimes to do self-care. So not just like you were saying, there's a familiarity with my self-care stranger if I'm saying that it's like a mirror image of myself, but self-care can feel familiar because it is things that we do that we enjoy, but we may not realize our self-care. Like me having to take 6 days off to snuggle 24/7, it feels like a sick child has not been feeling like self-care to me. And I don't think that's been very familiar for Declan either. I think that sitting on the couch for 6 days straight has felt very strange for him. But I'm wondering now, like in our future, should this happen again, do we know? Do we feel more familiar now to this piece of self-care when we're sick? That the couch shouldn't feel so strange. It is a place of rest for us when we are like this. This is how we do self-care. And can we then get familiar with our strange or self-care in a different way?
Yeah. I don't know that I really have the answer. Because in those circumstances, I think self-care is, essentially circumstantial. Like it is using our nurturing instincts automatically almost in the situation of having sick kids.
And I'm just hoping that when we talk about self-care as a stranger, we're not thinking stranger danger right away.
No.
We're
No.
thinking like, let's get familiar with
Let's
self-care.
get curious. Curious as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let's,
Mhm.
you know, embrace this instead of push it away.
Yeah. Excellent. Really good. Well, thank you for plowing through your muggy head,
Oh, yeah.
gluey head.
Appreciate you.
I really
Linda.
appreciate it. Yeah.
And what episode are we on? This is episode 93, which means we're getting super close to our 100th episode.
Yeah.
And we are trying to work on some plans to have a 100th episode celebration and some other fun things later on this year to celebrate self-care and just give us a reminder annually to do some really good self-care and learn more about it. So stay tuned for that information. We will drop them as we get closer at the end of our episodes and try and talk about what we're formulating, because this is a collaboration and we're practicing on making plans together and coming up with these
and no
ideas.
longer strangers.
Yes.
We've crossed that bridge. All right. So until next week.
We hope you can unstuck your Mac.
Bye for now.